Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us as we get ever closer to Town Meeting Day in Vermont. Always the first Tuesday. We're taping this show on Wednesday, February 19th, Town Meeting Day, in this case, the annual Swanton Village meeting, just 13 days away. Happy to have three guests who are going to tell us about all that's going on in Swanton Village. And for the first time on the show, good to see Dwayne Kuchar, the foreman supervisor for Swanton Village Electric Department. Dwayne, thanks for jumping into the fray here. Susie Kelleher, Swanton Village trustee, and Bill Sheets, the Swanton Village manager. Thanks for jumping on, folks.
Thanks for having us.
Anyway, also, and I should note, I guess, no contest in Swanton Village. Boy, you're going to be losing one of your longtime trustees, Eugene LeBombard, retiring. I guess this is his second stint on the board. You guys, or am I even?
No, you're right. Yeah.
Second stint,
It's
but boy, a lot of years of public service. So.
Absolutely.
And the person who will be succeeding him, not exactly a stranger to the board, Neil Spear, the former longtime village president, running unopposed for that seat, and David Winchester running unopposed for another term as Swanton Village president. So no contest in Swanton Village, but. Bill, you want to start the biggie again? Going back a year, you had the big project, and I know you gave that so much effort. Would you have like 30, 40, 50 public information meetings and stuff?
Take it easy, Richard. We had 34.
So, well, 30.
Yeah,
My first guess wasn't too bad.
We had 34 informational
Wow.
meetings. It was a $14.2 million ask.
And you would actually cut that down from 19-something.
We did to move fire and police next door to 124 First Street.
And this is basically for a new public safety building?
Correct. And then everybody that remained at 124 or at 120, our current facility, could have spread out, and that would have worked. It would have been very effective, but it was too large of a price tag. We heard loud and clear, not a close vote, 70 to 30.
About 2 to 1, even a little more than 2 to 1.
A little more than 2 to 1.
Yeah.
So that's what gets us to where we are today.
Yeah.
And we had said that all along, that option B might be to take Swanton Village Electric and all of the customer service representatives, support staff. So basically, as you enter our facility, everybody in that one wing, with the exception of the police, plus where all the electric department has their equipment, would move over next door. That then frees up a great deal of space for the police to expand, really without any additional cost. They can just expand into that space.
And you certainly weren't running, correct me if I'm wrong, I certainly don't think you were running into hardly anybody who was saying that the PD, police department, didn't need more space. Just sounded like, I guess there are always some people, but...
Very, very few. I think even the folks
most
that...
people acknowledge that, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that a lot of people, acknowledge the fact that the PD needs space, and that that spot that they're operating in hasn't changed since my dad was on the PD back in the 80s.
Of course, your dad, Dale Messer, also the former Franklin County Sheriff, and I remember him as a Swanton PD guy very well.
Right. And so it hasn't changed, and it's really hard for them to operate a modern-day police department out of that spot. So our hope is that they get to move into the area that the ladies, the support staff currently operate, Bill's office, Lynn's office, and be able to spread out, have the vault so that they have secure storage for their firearms and their evidence, and have the first bay where currently the electric department has their trucks, so that they have a sally port and a new place. They would hopefully use Dwayne's office to have their data master in that area, so that it's more contained for them. They're more spread out. They have more space than they do now, because currently they're operating in 400 square feet.
It's pretty close to that. It's embarrassingly small.
And how many officers?
So there's 9 full-time, and I used to be very proud to hang out and have a conversation with you and say that we're fully staffed.
You certainly
That's
mentioned
no
that.
longer the case. We
Really?
have 2 vacancies.
Really?
Yeah.
For full-timers?
Correct.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
And how many, you have a bunch of part-timers too?
We're down in that area. We have 5 really, and we do have a couple more interested part-timers, and we do have folks in the queue, but it's a really onerous process to become a police officer in Vermont.
Not to mention the competition.
layers.
I mean, is there one department in Vermont not looking for more officers? I mean, you were the only, nobody's fully staffed probably. Sonoma
Maybe.
City, I think, is close at least.
I think they're close.
close.
Yeah. For anyone watching, for Dominic as well, We match the pay of St. Albans City, so we
No,
can
really?
remain competitive.
Because that's kind of the big budget push in St. Albans City,
It
where I'm
is.
a longtime resident with,
Yeah.
I think they're kicking up the officers by about 8% or so, but that's a big
Right.
increase in the St. Albans City
Yep.
budget.
Yep.
So there's been so the PD's operating in the same space they've had since day one in the
Yeah.
Swanton Village Municipal
Yeah,
Complex?
I think the only thing they've inherited is the former boardroom that the trustees had, which is now the officers' room. So basically, they gained, I don't know, maybe 200 square feet,
Approximately.
roughly.
Yep.
Not much.
So they didn't really gain much. So you have, the full-time officers and the sergeants all working out of the same office, basically hot racking computers and chairs.
And of course, Swanton Village PD now covering Swanton Town.
Correct. With another contract on the ballot for the town voters
Right.
this year as well. It's with a really
So that's a
modest
separate
increase.
item. That's a separate line item for
It is.
Swanton Town.
Yeah.
Correct.
And of course, it just barely passed a year ago.
It did, but I think we have demonstrated through
Yeah.
professional law enforcement and community building that we really have delivered even some additional hours. I think the relationship that we have formed now with the select board and with the town members, I hope will lead to a successful vote. It's a very marginal, low percentage increase in the overall cost this year
So
for
not much of
them.
an increase.
Correct.
Interesting. So Dwayne, what do you think about this big project? It sounds like this means a whole lot to you. And
It does. It
Yeah.
does. To be able to spread out and to be able to house all the equipment that we currently
Yeah.
have outside, be able to put
Yeah.
that inside,
Huh.
that's going to be a big plus.
so it sounds like you've been immersed in this for a while. You had a lot to do with the planning of this, or I'm sure.
Yes, we have a whole team that,
Really?
that we work together with to get this to
How
where
many
we are.
employees was Swanton Village Electric?
For Swanton Village Electric,
Yeah.
we've got 6 of us that are all line
Yeah.
apprentices or linemen, and then we've got our meter tech, and we have our electrical engineer technician as
Interesting.
well, along with, if you count all of our hydro operators that are up there as well.
Right.
So,
And our front office professionals.
and our, excuse me, and our front office professionals as well.
So big second straight year. You have a big issue before voters. And again, the price tag is what,
8.3 million.
8.3 mil.
Correct. That's worst case scenario, and we're mindful of that. You must
Yeah.
present worst case
Sure.
scenario for the impact of the building.
Sure.
There's so many considerations taken into account for rate setting, but worst case scenario for the impact would be 8.3 million for the building of the facility.
Yeah. Did Public Utilities Commission, did they have any problem, or did they have comments on the project itself? Obviously, rates come into play big time, but for the project itself,
You have to file a 108 with the state of Vermont and those entities. That's a review. Public Utility Commission, when it comes time, we work with VEPSA. We're one of the muni power
Vermont
companies.
Public Power Supply Authority?
Correct. And they will help us determine and build a rate case based upon the new building if it goes through. But so many other factors, right? Your debt ratio, all those things. And then the Public Utility Commission has a hearing, and then they set your rate. Sometimes you get what you ask for. Oftentimes lately, you get far less.
And what are you going to be asking? What will this entail, this
Worst
project?
case scenario impact would be 14.3% on our rates. So that sounds scary,
Yeah.
but it's like we're telling everybody 14.3 doesn't tell the whole story. Right now, we are in the lowest 1 percentile of all public power rates in the state of Vermont. Power rates, period. At the end of this, with a 14.3% increase,
Yeah.
we will remain in the lowest 1% of all
Really?
rates in the state of Vermont.
And what, if I read the messenger story, just what Orleans and Ludlow, the only cheaper what?
For now, but both Ludlow and Orleans are in front of the PUC with double-digit increases, both
Interesting.
of them, without building a facility.
But again, Swanton Village Electric has had historically, I guess, very relatively low rates compared to other folks.
Yes, and we haven't had a rate increase since 2016.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that right? Almost 10 years?
By the time we do one, it will be 20 years, or 10
Wow.
years, full 10
What
years.
happened? I mean, what happened? Voters approved this project, and then you're having problem with the PUC or whatever getting the rate increase you need. what would be the story then? I mean, you need the rate increase to finance the project.
It will be financed. So this vote is for the authority to bond that amount.
Yeah.
The PUC will do the right thing and weigh everything up and give us a rate. When I say people haven't been getting exactly what they're asking for, they may ask for 10% and get 8%. There are now, effective a few years ago, utilities have the ability, without going to the PUC, to make small adjustments. It used to be 2% a year. Effective last year is 3% a year.
Yeah.
So you can make those internal adjustments. We haven't even done that since 2016.
Really? Wow. Interesting. Susie, the board's board's unanimous about this. Any board feels pretty good about this project?
We do. When David and I were running last year, this was one of the platforms that we were running on. It's a better idea to build our enterprise, our electric department at 124 versus the police department public safety building. And Adam and Eugene both are backing this building. They see that it's less of an ask because we're not asking for taxpayer dollars, we're asking for ratepayers. So that goes from a pool of 1,600 to a pool of 3,800.
Wow.
So it's spread out more. So if the Public Utilities Commission approves the 14.3%, what that will look like is a 600 kilowatt hour use being a 37 cent a day increase. So while it's still an increase, and I understand that it impacts many families, it's less of an impact than a taxpayer burden would have been.
That's right. And your reaction, you're feeling pretty good. I mean, who knows? Again, we're still 13 days away from the meeting, but I mean, a year ago, I mean, I assume you folks didn't have much hope that project was going to.
I was quite certain last year that we would lose 70-30, and we did.
It's all right. So you had the numbers right.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I might have been vaguely thinking about 2-1.
Yeah.
It just sounded like kind of a sticker shock situation.
Yep.
Anyway, did you have any a year ago, Dwayne? About
I didn't think that was going to pass.
Yeah.
No, it was asking too much of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
For there was too much of a jump on them.
Yeah.
So, and everything that I was hearing was against it.
Yeah.
And I will say this year, I've heard a lot of positives. This is the way that they had, in all those meetings we had, this is what they asked us to do.
Oh.
Move the electric department.
Yeah.
We heard that several times in every meeting. And so we put something together, and this is where we're at. So we're hoping we'll get a positive vote.
Interesting. You've had one. I know you have again. We're taping this show on February 19th, but on Wednesday the 19th tonight you do your second public info meeting?
Third.
Third.
Yep.
How'd you do for attendance? Did a few folks show up for the first two, or?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Just no.
3 for the first one.
Really?
During a normal trustee meeting, and
Wow.
then this last Saturday at 1 o'clock on a beautiful day, we had 5 people show up.
No, boy, that's
One person online combined for both meetings.
really.
It's not dissimilar to the wastewater bond we had years ago. We had 5 open houses and 2 people showed up
Yeah.
combined for all 5.
Although you happen to get pretty decisive approval for that, and
We did.
very small turnout, as I recall.
Yep.
And again, you have another info meeting this coming Monday, Feb 24, which is also the joint select board trustee meeting, info meeting before
Yes.
articles coming up on March 4th.
Right.
Anyway, and of course, some folks have already voted. I assume ballots are out, or are they?
If you request them, they're out,
request
because
them.
this round they don't get mailed to everybody.
Okay, so most voters will be voting on March 4th, then presumably.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you, Susie? You got a good handle on your village, I'm sure. Percent turnout. What do you think you're going to get for a turnout on March 4th?
I think we're not going to have the amount of turnout that we had last year. Last year was a stellar turnout, but I know that it was a big turnout in order to vote that
Much of it
70-30
with
for the
opponents of the
public.
project.
Yeah, public serve. So I think that this one we'll see it go back to more of a normal turnout, which is about 300.
Yeah, if we could get to 20%, that would be successful.
Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And I'm not sure that we'll get there.
Yeah.
We might.
Interesting. And time frame, if you get approval, give us how soon are you working on this project?
It depends.
Depends.
on a number of
Obviously,
factors.
then you're after the getting approval for the rate increase if the project goes through. Is that basically the next step, or?
No, so the next step would be to approach the Vermont Bond Bank. That's a fairly quick and easy process. And then
Brownfield.
the brownfield mitigation next door. And depending on when that happens, and we get a SMAC, an all clear designation,
Yeah.
will depend on when we can start building. And if it's too late in the year,
Yeah.
inevitably you wait, you bid in the winter, you build next spring.
Yeah. And how long a building process?
1 year.
One year.
Yep, one season.
Yep,
So
we're
you have a-
working with Connor.
Oh,
Con-
you got a
yep.
contract then?
Yep, and they've been excellent. In the meetings that we've had with Connor, they've been really good about pointing out ways that we could save cost,
Yeah.
but also pointing out ways that we might want to shift costs, right? Like instead of spending money on X, maybe move it to Y because that makes more sense to our department needs. So I think, and unanimously, they were chosen by the committee and then by the board of trustees. So
Yeah.
we're keeping it local.
So the brownfields issue that may be significant, and you don't have hard to say, or
No, I don't think it's significant at all.
No.
But it's a
something you
significant
have to
time
deal with.
commitment.
Right.
It's a very detailed, laborious process that we have to navigate with the state of Vermont.
yeah.
And
Imagine that. Nothing. I'm sure you've had to do before. But I'm kidding. But
the good
Tough
news,
process,
the good
huh?
news is that between petroleum cleanup funds and Northwest Regional Planning Commission,
yeah.
80% minimum of all costs are going to be reimbursed
No, it's-
of the
it's
cleanup.
good.
So it's not going to be a significant. It's going to be a very minor portion of overall project cost.
If I just may, like
Yeah.
having a plan in place for 2024, a building, a schematic, if you will, of what we want is much easier to go to the state and say, this is what we want to build. What areas do we need to concentrate on
Yeah.
for cleanup versus what we've been dealing with at 6 South River, where we don't have a plan. We don't know what we're going to do. And we don't know, I mean, we know what needs to be cleaned up, but we don't know based on the building plan what needs to be focused on.
You're talking the riv. I can only
Yes.
assume you're talking the riv here.
Yes, which
Somewhere
also has a
in-
brownfield.
Yeah, somewhere in Neil Spears' ears were just
I know, yes, it was.
Interesting. So I'm sorry. So 6 Riv, the Riv property, you're still dealing with that?
We
With
are,
that issue?
yes. So we put that out for proposal, and we got back one,
Correct.
and it was Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, really?
And we've been working with Robin
Yes.
and talking about what the building plan might be, what it might look like. And once the Habitat firms up what they're going to do, then it's much easier to move forward with what we may need to do for the brownfield. But as it stands right now, without knowing what they're going to be able to accomplish on that property, what needs to happen to it. So that's at a standstill.
You surprised there wasn't more interest in the property?
No.
No.
No. You surprised you got one? You got one?
I yes.
Is that right?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's a brownfield. It's a lot of people who are builders and aren't able to tap into the resources like the petroleum cleanup fund and the brow program the way that we are. So that I think is probably the main reason why the village got involved in the Old Riv property to begin with. And while many of the voters in the village were against them purchasing the property, it would have sat derelict for years and just collapsed in and on itself. And, I think it's important that the village did the right thing, even though it was not a popular choice. And yes, money from ARPA was used to purchase that, and a lot of people, feel like that should have been before the voters to discuss what happened. But once the village realized that property was a brownfield, stepping in and purchasing it was the right thing to do. And so now we're just looking to sell it. Are we going to make a profit? No. But we'll have able to bring more affordable housing to our village.
And you've obviously improved the immediate neighborhood around there. As opposed to
Exactly.
having a decaying
Right.
building, which you're right, I assume
Yep.
at some point would have probably fallen down.
Yes.
Interesting. If the project starts, you still have some hope. If you get voter approval, you hope the project will start sometime this year? I mean, that's a hope anyway, or?
Yeah, we hope so. The other wild card are the tariffs.
Right.
So
In
half
fact,
of the building
that
is
was on my
wood,
mind.
half of the building is steel.
Oh,
It doesn't mean that we don't always try, or the contractors don't always try to
Wow.
buy American, build American.
yeah.
But steel is a popular byproduct of Canada,
Yeah.
and it could have a tariff attached to it.
Interesting. So that may come into play.
It could. So that may result in a bit of a delay. If we think that there's going to be some mitigation of those costs, if we wait until the next spring, we will wait as long as we can meet that 8.3 million goal.
Interesting. Actually, this question, I played some tennis this morning. This question came up with some of my tennis folks, but it seems like I'm hearing the tariff issue, which the president's talking about, hitting Canada up for tariffs. I'm a Green Mountain Power, and a lot of that power is what, Canadian hydro?
Yeah.
Will that affect our power bills for Vermonters if tariffs are imposed?
It could.
It could.
Not likely right away. It won't hit ours. Ours is a very, very marginal cost. All of VEPSA's
Yeah.
possible liability is very small. Washington Electric, theirs is fairly large.
Really interesting.
Yep. But we're in a great place. We have the hydro that produces on any given year between 70 and 80%
Wow.
of all our supports our load for our 3,800 customers, and that's a godsend.
For sure. How was 2024 a good year for your hydro?
It was a down year because it was dry. Despite that, we hit exactly 70% of our
Really?
loads.
Still hit
Still
70?
a good year.
Wow.
And we've had some problems with a couple of our older turbines. Thank
Yeah.
you. But they were-
Ormond Ecroft generating facility still in pretty decent shape, would you say, Dwayne?
It is. It is. I mean, there's constantly, looking at, like Susie just said, there is older generators in there, that we have to keep fixing possibly, with certain things. But nope, they're doing a real good job of keeping it going. And like Bill said, the amount of power that we're able to generate is another good reason why we're able to keep our rates down.
Yeah. Where it's at 70 to 80%. Well, of course, that brings me, I guess, to your good friends at FERC in the state of Vermont on the relicensing. How are you faring? How are you faring with that? That process moves along, however slowly.
It remains an opportunity for us to have a dialogue with the state of Vermont. So
Well, it sounds like this doesn't come easily, huh?
we're filing paperwork on a regular basis with FERC. We keep having to do additional engineering studies,
Really?
river impact, ecology studies, and things like that. We hope that this will be the year that we actually make some progress.
Oh. Right, sounds like it. And it just sounds like the state, as we've talked about before, the state just sounds like it is just much tougher, for lack of a better word, to deal with than the feds about this. Yeah.
Oh, it's not. It's night and day.
Not even
Yeah.
no comparison.
no comparison.
And again, as you said before, I guess there are some folks in the state would love to see your dams go away.
Not the Highgate Falls Dam. We're not
Highgate
hearing
Falls.
that. The Lower
is that
Swanton
right? Not
Dam.
hearing that, but the Lower Swanton
It's the
Dam.
number one dam for removal wish list on
Is it?
multiple.
Is that right in the state?
Yes.
But you folks, I know you had the referendum some years back, strong support and an informal non-binding vote to keep it. I
keep
mean, still a lot of local support. There are not too many folks locally who would like to see that dam go away.
Yeah, most of the villagers and even most of the people in town want that to remain. I think it's more along the lines of like nature advocates who feel like taking it out would be better for the fish in that area.
Yeah. And you did, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you check to see if you could get some hydro out of that a while back and it didn't seem, or am I dreaming that?
We partnered with some independent folks that thought it might be a possibility, but
Yeah.
it did not
Not the
take
case.
long in the exploration world to determine that it wasn't going to be feasible.
All right, not feasible.
Right.
But so there's nobody in the state, so they're not telling you to get rid of Highgate Falls. The
Have
big
not
dam.
heard that suggested. That's been there forever.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And it's a common spot that was used back before we had this type of technology
Yeah.
as a natural dam. So
Yeah.
no, I have not heard
I've not
that.
heard that. What I have heard is that they would rather see us go run of river versus being able to pond.
Okay.
And so, but ponding is the way that we are able to store and continue and generate electricity as we need to.
Sure.
During our peak times.
Yeah, thank you.
To utilize
Sure.
that energy and that power that we generate at the correct times
Right.
to save the most money.
Right.
that
If
we
you
can
did
save.
run of river, what would that, if you're producing 70 to 80% of your
It would cost
power,
us millions of dollars a year.
and how much of that percentage would go down significantly, I assume, or go down?
Totally depends on the rainfall
Right,
and
right.
what Mother Nature provides.
Right.
Yeah.
But it
But I
would go
do see it
down.
going
But it
down.
would go
Would go
down.
down.
Yes.
So
At least.
that's the last thing. So that's the last thing you folks would want to see.
Absolutely.
We've made past concessions with the state of Vermont in the 401 process that have restricted our ability to pond. FERC has higher limits for us to well,
Really?
you can only go as high as the dam, right?
Right.
That's restricted. But you used to be able to pond even go lower, drawdown,
Yeah.
in anticipation of it filling up. Now we don't do as much of that. We're a little bit higher, and that was based upon an agreement that we made in the past before my arrival
Yeah.
with the state of Vermont. And we'll defend as much as we can those current restrictions. We've made those concessions. We feel that any other modifications to our ability to pond and produce power is unacceptable.
But you're running. It just sounds like the issues you're running into with the state, are they getting tougher? You haven't been on board that long, but does it seem like it's tougher now than it was when you started? Is it?
No, it's about
No.
the
About the
same.
same.
I understand. I understand that they want to make sure that you're not doing anything harmful to the environment.
Yeah.
But we've literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies through the years that
Yeah.
demonstrate with solid scientific evidence that there's no detrimental impact at all.
Yeah.
And I think the other frustrating thing is that the studies that we've paid for by scientists that used to work for ANR,
Right.
but now ANR wants another study or doesn't find the data in that study viable, so do another study. So I think that's the frustrating part, at least for us on the board, is that we're doing all the studies or we're doing everything that ANR asks us to do, but it doesn't seem like it's enough. But when is it going to be enough? We don't.
Is it ever going to be enough? Sounds
Yes.
Hopefully
So
not.
it sounds like a very frustrating issue for you, Dwayne, obviously, huh?
Yes, as well. Yeah, I mean, relicensing and getting all that stuff done for what is some of the best green energy that we can ask for. I know that's our big push, in the state. It's renewable, it's green, it's reliable.
Well, flashing back to conversations with your predecessor, Rich Bellabone, just the feeling that hydro just doesn't get the whatever positive reaction that I'm sure folks like you think it should for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Not in the state of Vermont. There's a renewed push federally now to recognize hydro.
Is
So
that right?
that could help in the pursuit of federal grants.
But not doing any good in Vermont, presumably.
Doesn't seem to be under attack like it was in past sessions this year,
Yeah.
which is nice, but it's not lauded as much as it should be.
Right. And
Go ahead, Susie.
I'm sorry. And I think a lot from some in the state, the push is towards solar. But for us, solar doesn't make sense because we have the hydro is renewable energy, and buying into solar, you're not really saving anything. Whereas you might, if you're a GMP or if you were Velco, if those were your electric providers, you'd probably save considerably switching to solar power. But for Swanton Village electric customers, there's not a payout for that.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of solar, I was coming up on the Amtrak Vermonter Monday from DC and went by a huge solar, probably went by a bunch, but one in particular in Pioneer Valley in Western Mass somewhere. But and of course, snow, a fair amount of snow down there.
Yeah.
So obviously all the panels are snow covered, and it crossed my mind, are solar panels of some use in winter snow covered, or I can only assume that cuts way down on.
They claim it still generate power, but
Really?
but what we see with the two larger arrays that we've got
Yeah.
around, they definitely, it drops off dramatically.
Yeah, I guess I kind of figured as much. I hadn't thought about that before, but this is a huge solar farm, and totally snow covered. But interesting. So the project moves ahead, Dwayne. How much of an impact does that kind of disrupt the electric department's life? Pretty much.
It will not disrupt our daily activities at all.
Yeah.
The only time that it'll come to that will be, should we get that approval and we get the building just when they move
Right.
from one to the other. And we can do that relatively easy, I think.
Yeah.
You know.
So you have a pretty good feeling about the vote, Susie. I mean, again, a year ago, it seemed like no doubt
No
the
doubt.
project was clearly going down.
Yeah.
So you have a decent feeling about what's coming up here.
I have a decent feeling about this. I mean, I don't want to put numbers on it. I mean, I feel like it's going to pass. I think people I've been talking to are in favor of it. I mean, you do have the small minority of people who they're just going to vote no matter what it is.
And what's your big beef? Hey, we can't afford anything more, whatever.
Yeah, just don't raise anything, you know. Why can't the electric department fundraise? Trying to explain the difference between, how our highway and our police department, fire department are tax dollar generated, where our water, sewer, and electric are ratepayer generated, and it affects a different group of people. While those groups may overlap because they're village voters, it's not, the electric is not going to be solely on just village voters. It's going to be on whoever has Swanton Village electric. So that'll be Highgate, that'll be, some of the businesses in St. Albans. So those are the people it's going to affect. And it, if we were, worst case scenario, to get that 14.3% rate increase from the Public Utilities Commission, it will affect 3,800 people versus just 16.
Right. Interesting. Bill, your thoughts? Sounds like you were right on about the result a year ago, but you have a decent feeling about getting a positive vote?
I do, based on a number of factors. So kudos to the trustees. They hold us accountable. Great work internally by our team. We, at one point, just generic municipal budget work, we were at 20% when we started. We went to 12.5 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, we're at 5.5. You're going to walk in the vote. You're going to have what we think is a reasonable and manageable amount for your municipal budget, all with costs based way beyond our control, right? Some modest salary increases and a ton of insurance and liability things. Really not much you can do about that, and everybody's dealing with that.
Insurance, boy, health insurance sounds like the kind of the killer issue these days. Huh?
And then also at the same time, you're walking into a school budget vote that is minus 4%. A decrease of 4%.
Wow.
That should help.
That should help.
And then what we also think is a very reasonable and manageable decision on a public facility, a Swanton Electric facility that will meet the needs of everything we're trying to do for the next 50 years.
Right. The other items on the ballot for Swanton Village folks, kind of the usual, asking for appropriations for what, police, fire,
general, and the highway.
Nothing too out of the ordinary about those?
No, very, very insignificant increases across the board, really just to, like Bill mentioned, slight increases in pay for the police department, insurance, health insurance, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, that kind of stuff, and, municipal retirement. So, it's all the benefits that you you give your employees, those go up. So we have to, obviously pass the cost on to the taxpayers. Except for in the case of the water, sewer, and electric, we're able to pass that on to ratepayers. So.
Between Swanton Village Electric, your staff, has that been pretty stable? I think of Swanton Village having a pretty stable workforce over the years, generally anyway.
Yeah, we have. I mean, there's been some turmoil over, turnover, I shouldn't say turmoil, but turnover with some of my staff early on when the crews that want to chase storms, the contract crews, they were offering a lot of money for people to start chasing storms and go with them. So it wasn't just Swanton, it was every one of them in the state, all our power companies in the state that were losing people. So we went through a little bit of time for that. Now it seems to be pretty stable. It seems to be coming back where, that's not happening as much, we had to make sure that we were paying adequate for everyone, and try to stay within anything. But it's going pretty good now. We've got a good group of guys.
Yeah.
And again, you've been with the department a long time, and in the end, it's not too far away, huh?
Possibly, yes. That's what we're looking at. Yeah. So
Why don't we go on camera right now and extend your retirement date?
I think we're going to stay with that September.
Okay,
date.
I had to try.
So that's the plan now, September.
That is the plan, September. Yes.
So Dwayne wants to stay on to see the completion of the automated meter. And we're at the point, you've put up the DCUs, you've installed a couple of the AMIs, and moving towards, you probably speak to it better than I can.
So we're working on the software package for the office for all the smart metering, and once that's completed, and we make our mass order, which we plan on making in probably a few weeks, we'll turn around and when those all come in, then we'll be able to deploy all those. Between that and we've got our GIS mapping that we've been doing for over a year now, trying to get all that done for our whole system is mapping, which will, in the future as things progress, this will all be part of outage management control for our whole system.
Interesting.
And it works very well. Customers of Swanton Electric are very fortunate in that we have several different ways of being able to supply them with power, and keeping the system up and keeping them with the reliable power. So they've been very fortunate.
I think I mentioned before in a show at the Highgate Town meeting, either last year or the year before, issue came up. Someone said, "Hey, can I switch over to Swanton Village Electric?" And the response was, "I'm afraid you can't do that." And folks can. I mean, has your territory increased? I mean, has that been the same for forever, pretty much?
Yes, it is. It's all mapped out.
No reason that
it would need to be other utilities that would want to sell parts of it. I don't foresee any of that happening. There would be only one little section that possibly Highgate Springs, which is in the middle of our system, which we supply power to, but is owned by Vermont Electric Co-op.
Yeah, really.
They would need to, want to sell it to us, and it'd have to be, reasonably priced for us to be able to afford doing something like that. I know those people in that area would love to have us as their supplier, but it's not that easy.
So service areas don't tend to change.
Not usually.
So our potential for growth for Swan Electric is the Southern Growth District. As houses and businesses come to the Southern Growth, that's where Swan Electric will grow to feed those businesses with reliable power.
And where are you talking about specifically
the Southern Growth District, right off from where Handy's and
so by exit 20.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. They just built a new state garage there, so we're supplying power to that.
And National
Guard.
National Guard's looking for a headquarters there.
Right.
Interesting. So there might be some potential there.
Yep.
You'd be happy to have more customers.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, we can handle it.
You can handle it.
The system is built to handle more.
And like thousands more? Could you handle a whole? You've got 3,800 now.
Yeah, a lot of our system is built to be able to probably handle. Yeah, we could handle 1,000 more. We've built for like 20-year growth when we've reconductored and done the work that we've done.
Yeah. And we're currently working on laying fiber optic up into that. Well, we will be working on laying fiber optic up into that area, up towards the.
In that, yes, we're working in that direction.
We're
yes.
working. We're not there yet.
We're
but
running more
towards.
fiber optics out there to
really?
work in with our SCADA system, which we watch our grid with. We're able to control switches that way. So we're constantly doing upgrades to the system. Regardless of the bond and being able to build this building, that does not stop the rest of our plans for we always have a 5-year plan of what we're going to do moving forward, to try to continually make progressions and make updates to our whole system and keep it there.
Is Vermont electricity-wise in general in good shape? It seems like every once in a while I'll read about New England issues, if it's really hot, if everybody's got their air conditioners on, if, is there enough? Is there any? You certainly hear about that in California with all the other issues out there. Brownouts, is that ever an issue in Vermont or around here?
Well, there's talk of that we could get to that stage. There right now, Velco is actually upgrading their system from Georgia all the way up through to Highgate. They're reconductoring all of that, so that is going to be. That's what they're looking at, the whole infrastructure, where they need to make the upgrades so that we don't get into those
And
situations.
these are the transmission line people.
Correct. Yep.
Interesting. Well, again, sounds like a big problem. Sounds like the electric department, with anything like this, maybe this sounds like some real significant changes, obviously, I guess, over the years. So.
Yeah, there has been, but we've stayed up with that progressions, and I think New England is worked well to try and maintain what we need, so we're not ending up like California with all these brownouts that they have to have.
So poor California, just unbelievable issues out there. LOT, local option tax, I was getting some attention, certainly talking when I would talk to Earl Fournier, the Swanton town folks, Joel Clark, but then, and you had those discussions too. It was decided, Susie, Bill, anybody, that it just wasn't, it sounded like a little complicated with the village and town issue.
Yes. So when our legislature made the decision to allow towns to just move ahead with the local option tax.
Of course, the state loves it. The state grabs, 30% of this, right?
Right. So they did not make allowances for incorporated villages like our own and the town to share the local option tax. So we would enact a local option tax at 1%, and that would apply to the village. And then when the town enacted their 1% local tax, now all the villages has a 2% local option tax. And we just don't think that was fair to village businesses and our customers who come to the businesses, or their customers that come to the businesses. So we decided to hold off while we asked Matt Walker and Tom Oliver to bring to session that there would be the ability for villages and towns to share funds for local option tax.
Was that surprising news when you looked into that it was that complicated?
Yeah, we got a legal opinion that suggested that that's what could happen. This is hot off the press because you haven't heard it, but as recently as yesterday, I got a message from the legislature. They now believe at the State House that we can internally, amongst governance boards, figure this out on our own.
Oh, really?
But they're going to look at it a little bit further. So they're working on it. We hope to have some kind of solution. Then there can be a decision in front of both boards, because I don't think we would do it independent of one another.
Yeah.
Perhaps as early as November, perhaps next March.
No, really interesting. So that may still have. Does that sound like a good idea to you, Susie?
I do. I think a local option tax is a good idea. It would allow us to do a lot of the capital projects that we need to do, like the bridge. It would allow us to have more funds to complete highway projects, like fixing sidewalks. A lot of our sidewalks on Grand Avenue need replaced and repair. It would allow us to do things like that without having to add to the highway budget and then impact the taxpayer. So local option tax would be spread out amongst people who go to the bistro, go to Ace Harbor, go to Bees on Broadway, and
not to mention people who don't live in Swanton.
and the people who
obviously.
don't live in Swanton, exactly. So it would really, and all of the Amazon shipments that I have coming to my house, it would allow us to tap into that as well.
That's right. Well, St. Albans Town, of course, comes right to mind, having paid for their town hall, public works garage, all through LOT.
Exactly.
Money, St. Albans City, of course, also in LOT.
Yeah.
And again, the state. I can only assume the state's happy to have everybody do this, probably just getting a take of it, I
think they would love that.
And my son is a police officer in Brandon,
Oh,
and
really?
with
Wow.
their LOT, they bought a highway truck. So we would be able to do big purchases like that for our
Right.
highway public works department.
Susie, I get the sense, without seeing you, but it sounds like you've had quite a year on the board.
I have.
Sounds like, boy, a learning curve, but boy, I'm impressed. Sounds like you've really gotten into the job you were elected to a year ago.
She's done all that and more.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
great.
I feel like I hit the ground running, asked a lot of questions, listened, learned. I rely on Bill. I rely on the department heads to teach me and spend time with them. But also, I go in and I talk to the guys on the line crew, the guys in the highway department, the guys at the hydro, the ladies in the front office, and just get their perspective
Right.
on how things are going. Because it's not just about what Bill thinks or what Chief thinks or what Dwayne thinks, but it's about what everybody in the thinks. And I feel like I still have a lot to learn, but by all means do I know everything. But I feel like I've definitely learned a lot in this past year, and I feel like I've grown a lot, and to be able to see how things are when you're on one side of the table, things look a little bit different. When you're on this side of the table, and you really start to understand how certain things that impact taxpayers, certain things impact ratepayers, how the enterprises work, how the 41 employees that we have work together as a team. We have Dan Chevalier, who's the head of maintenance, who's been having some problems at Hydro. He's also the head of Hydro. He needed some help with maintenance at the complex. He was able to ask Jason Starr to step up, and he did without hesitation. We have brilliant men working in the public works department who can MacGyver the most amazing things and really save taxpayers. $20,000, I think, has been saved this past year with just their ingenuity.
Yep.
We have a really great group of linemen who, are willing to put in, extra time and, answer probably some of the most ridiculous questions I've had, but just, why is this shovel bent? Oh, let me tell you why. Just really explain to me what it's like for them day in and day out. And I've gone into the turbines at the hydro. I've gone I've gone up into the bucket truck. I'm really trying to see what it's like where each one of our people work. I've gone to the wastewater plant. I've gone to the water treatment facility. Any opportunity that I have to see what it's like for them, I'm doing it because I want to know what it's like so that when I'm at the table making those decisions, I know what it's like for them, so I'm able to make the right decision for them as well as the constituents that I represent.
Yeah, sounds really impressive. And with your father, Dale, I'm sure you always probably had a feel for police issues, I can only assume.
Yeah. I am the electric commissioner. I'm not the police commissioner, but I do feel like I work closely with Chief, and I'm able to discuss police issues with him as they arise. And, I just feel like, and also I'm not the highway commissioner, but I am able to go to Dean and ask questions and learn. And, so I think across the board, it's a really good opportunity for me to see how everything works, and learning from some of the subject matter experts that have, so much time in, 28 years. And, it's just it's been really good, I think, for me. And I think for the people I represent, as well as for our employees, that and maybe, I don't know, at times could be considered overly involved for a trustee, but I just really want to learn everything that I can and know what it's like for them.
Sounds very impressive to me.
And
That's
she's
great.
the health officer, the new
I
health
get-
Oh, is that
officer.
right?
In the town, yes, for the town.
Does that come into play? Is that are there issues that come up with that job, or
So far I have had, in the town of Swanton, I've had several issues, lead paint, health issues around trash. But it's really, it feels like a different beast than what I'm doing at the village. But just being able to be more involved in things that are happening in the town was something that I was, looking for, and they weren't able to fill that position. And I think, too, it's helpful for our police department to have a health officer that they can rely on, and, I can work closely with them for issues that they have.
yeah? With the police department down 2 positions, is that starting to impact coverage, or can you still do okay with the short?
No, the coverage is okay. But it impacts their ability to be off. In particular, it
Right.
impacts Chief Sullivan's ability to have
Yeah.
time away.
Yeah.
So we're very hopeful. If anyone's watching this and wants to have, and we can answer any questions about becoming a police officer, just like any other community. But we'd love to talk to people.
Yeah, interesting. So biggest change, a lot of years with Swanton Village Electric, Dwayne.
Yes.
What are maybe a thing or two that come right to mind? Changes or?
Oh, wow. The biggest change probably is how much that we don't have cross-country now. We still have cross-country lines, but most of it is roadside.
And when
So
you say
it's-
cross countries, meaning?
You can't get buckets to it. You've got to climb
really?
everything
Oh,
to
really?
fix it. So, I mean, the biggest change was when our transmission from Highgate to Swanton was all cross country. So
Really?
everything was, when I first got here, everything had to be done on hooks.
Really?
Which we still have stuff that we have to do that way. But that all got brought roadside on 78, and the reliability factor just goes up a lot. There's, you're only having to clean, keep one side of the power lines cleaning for the right of ways.
Yeah.
Because the road's on the other side, so you're good. So that all, it cuts down on cost
Yeah.
savings,
How have you fared this winter? And any outages? Any particular? Seems like freezing rain. We haven't had too much of an issue with that.
We spend quite a lot of money every year on tree trimming and keeping that down, and that entail keeps our power on more.
We definitely had some wind issues lately.
We have had with the wind issues and this snow that we just had. We didn't have any outages. Knock on wood, to keep it that way. We probably have more car or vehicle accidents than anything. That's what we just had last Thursday. That was an outage. Yeah.
Oh, really?
A tractor trailer, unfortunately, going down a dead end road that didn't realize that it was not a road for a tractor trailer, ended up down there, snapped off a pole. So we had a few hours there. Didn't affect a lot of customers, but a small group of customers that it did affect until we could get things back on.
But that's pretty unusual. I mean, outages are pretty unusual.
Yeah, we probably average in a year's time. We average probably, and this is from larger outages, say to just single outages.
Yeah.
Probably between 20 to 30 a year.
Yeah.
From a bird opening up a transformer fuse to a tree branch coming down or something.
Yeah.
Including our car. That's all of our outages total.
Yeah.
So so we have a very reliable system with very few outages.
Bill, Susie mentioned the bridge. Quick update on the bridge project. As in, you need to replace Route 70. Have we got the right number?
You
Route 70?
always bring it up. Yeah, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge. So,
Right,
of course, we repaired it this year.
Right.
The expansion joints are good. Still slated, haven't heard anything different, 2029.
Really?
Yep. So conceptual stuff will start in 2028, maybe a little advanced work, 2029. depending on the scope of the work, we're responsible for anywhere from 2.5% to 10% of the total project cost.
And total project costs are
Could be 8 to 10 million.
really, wow.
We're not sure yet, but
And
certainly
how
could be.
long a project are we talking? How long a time frame?
It depends. They can do an expedited process. I think the biggest decision that is going to be faced by both governance boards is whether there's a willingness to close the bridge during that.
Right.
We get a significant savings by doing that, and they will expedite. So kind of like North Hero, prefabbed concrete,
No, really.
and just the surface, the structure. If only the decking has to be done, they're claiming they could get it done in 60 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So 2029 is still the pegged year at this point
I'm
anyway,
comfortable
huh?
with 2032.
Yeah. But you're
Because you're very tired.
but again, the bridge, you're okay, you're in okay shape till then?
We are told by the engineers, the experts that have evaluated it, that we are good to go until the decking needs to be replaced in 2029.
Yeah.
Yes.
So back to the big project. About 4 minutes left here. So again, the board's unanimous. You guys getting out, talking to all the folks you can. You certainly don't get, unfortunately, many people coming to your informational meetings, but
We don't.
people, I mean, I trust most people would be aware of this. I mean, having the bigger different project defeated a year ago. Hopefully, most people have some handle on what's going on with this. Hope so.
I think that most of our voters have a handle on it.
Yeah.
There's still that small percentage who think that we're just recycling
Really?
the public works
Really?
building and labeling it as the electric building, but that's not the case. It's very much there's going to be a training room, a boardroom, and then office spaces, a locker room. And then the back part of the building is going to be all for the line crew for their equipment and their inventory. And then they're going to have a pole barn space out in the back. So it's a different building. It's a different design, a different price tag. And again, it's ratepayers versus taxpayers. So my hope is that people, even if they don't come to the meeting, see that we are proposing something that's quite different.
Right. Dwayne, you run into that? Do you think most people you're dealing with realize this is a very, very different project?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, like I said before, I think this is what they asked us to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of them that were opposed to the other one, I have heard from them personally that they are, yes, this is what we wanted you to do. This is what's been needed. So, and all of our open houses, when we've shown people how our equipment is stored right now, what we have inside, what we have outside, and now we are out of space. We just don't have it.
Yeah.
So this will definitely clear things up. And the building is we're looking at a 50-year build,
50 years.
Yeah. So.
Well, speaking of the Village Municipal Complex has been around for
50 years.
50 years, in fact.
Yep.
Interesting. That was a EDA funded, along with the Highgate Arena Economic Development Administration, as I vaguely recall.
I wasn't there then, but that's what I've heard.
I think
Yes.
so. Yeah, that's about how long I go back around. Bill, got about another minute. Again, sounds like a ton of work on this project, but you feel you have a pretty good project, a very good project here.
I hope so. If anyone's watching this, we have 2 more public forums. One's tonight at 6, so I don't think anybody's going to see it before then. The final one's our joint meeting to present our entire budget along with the Town Select Board, and that's on Monday night, the 24th at 7 p.m.
And where's that meeting?
At the complex.
At the complex, of
Yep.
course.
And if I just may, if anyone
Yeah.
has any questions, they're welcome to contact me, Bill, Dwayne, and we'd be happy to walk them through
Absolutely.
what the proposal is and what the impact is.
Yeah. Do you get some calls? Do you get some
I've
calls?
not gotten any calls.
Is that
I've got
not
a
really?
couple DMs, but a couple text messages, but really nothing really.
I've had a lot of calls, actually.
Have you? Good
Yes.
Is
for
that
you.
right?
Yeah.
And people, I think I saw people can walk into the complex, and if you have a minute or two, can talk to you.
Happens every day.
Is that right? Every
Yep.
day?
Encourage it.
Interesting. Okay, on that note, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks very much, Dwayne Kuchar. Good to see you, Dwayne, with the the soon-to-be, or not wicked soon, but retiring foreman supervisor for Swanton Village Electric Department, Swanton Village trustee Susie Kelleher, Swanton Village manager Bill Sheets. Thanks for the time, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. And again, big vote coming up on March 4th. Next to my key guy out there, Alan Cunningham, our producer, I'm Richard Cowperthwait. See you next time here on Northwest Access TV. See ya.